Tonight, the latest on Burma's saffron revolution, with tens of thousands continuing to oppose the country's military junta. Point being, how will the army dictators respond?
It's very likely, I think, to turn violent at some stage.
Plus, Dateline in the thick of it in Gaza. As Hamas and Fatah fight it out, is the dream of a united Palestine fading fast? And the late Indonesian human rights activist Munir was poisoned, but he's still in the news. David O'Shea hears dramatic new court evidence in this unresolved murder mystery.
Hampir semua orang dengan akal sehat bisa melihat bahwa kasus Munir merupakan ujian bagi reformasi sistem kenegaraan.
G'day, welcome again. And first up, the bereft Asian nation of Myanmar, or Burma, call it what you will, is on a knife's edge. As we go to air, those deceptively colourful street protests led by the country's Buddhist monks are into their second week. Most outside observers fear the worst, that a violent put-down by the military government is imminent. Just before we came on air, I spoke by phone from Rangoon with the British ambassador, Mark Canning. I asked him what was the latest on the streets of the capital.
Well, as of about an hour ago, I mean, there's certainly a very heavy military presence on the ground. Troops since this morning have been placed in strategic areas, notably around the main pagoda, the Shwedagon Pagoda, around the Sule Pagoda, around the sorts of places that the protesters have been marching. The question then was whether the protesters would show up again in the face of this, but they have. There are columns of protesters moving around the city, so judging the number is quite difficult. But about 5 minutes ago, we had an extraordinary scene outside this embassy where probably 8,000 to 10,000 people marched past, many of them applauding the embassy. There was a nucleus of clergy, of monks, but the vast majority of people were just civilians, many women, many students. They were followed at some distance by some truckloads of troops, but they didn't intervene. There has been the use of tear gas today. There have been 2, if not more, volleys of shots over the heads of the crowd. We know that a number of monks were fairly severely beaten up by the Shwedagon today, but we haven't been able to confirm any deaths.
Ambassador, you've said that the probability of a disaster when you spoke to the BBC was high, you felt. Is a full-on crackdown by the military imminent?
Well, you could say this is a crackdown. I mean, it's clearly a graduated crackdown. I mean, for the last 7 or 8 days, these protests have proceeded unhindered around the town, around Mandalay and other cities. Today has brought a different response. We've got a curfew coming in from dusk to dawn. We've got a prohibition on gatherings of more than 5 people, not that it appears to have had much effect. We've had a series of arrests of democracy activists overnight. So, taken with the violence I just mentioned, there is no doubt this is a crackdown, but it's not as severe perhaps as one might have feared yet. But I suspect they will go about this in a military way, and they will try this, and if that doesn't work, they will try perhaps something more. We very much hope they don't. We're encouraging them not to. We think it would be a disaster if they did use violence.
Indeed. Back in 1998, of course, during the protests, 3,000 people lost their lives. Are we staring the same sort of horrible slaughter in the face now? We very much hope, we pray that that's not the case. So far not. We're doing our best to ensure it doesn't prove the case, but there are all the recipes here, I'm afraid, for a very unhappy story of that kind, but we sincerely hope not. And the protesters have been very smart. They've been disciplined, they've been peaceful, they haven't been bothering anyone. They clearly have got a political bent to them, if you like, but they are doing their very best not to give anyone the excuse to use violence. Ambassador, thanks very much for your time. We'll have to leave it there, but all the best with your diplomatic efforts, and we'll try to stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Bye.